Did you know? That's today's video. Did you know a white and black pen is everything? Did you know you can use trash? Did you know? Let's find out.
All right, so first thing, did you know that some inks you can heat emboss with? Some inks stay wet a little bit longer, not necessarily pigment inks. Most pigment inks, yes, you can heat emboss with. But other inks, such as these Catherine Pooler dye inks, they stay wet a little bit longer, so I am able to heat emboss. So I have this one image. I have mounted it onto my Misty stamping tool, and I'm going to ink it up with a couple of different colors here, and then we're going to heat emboss. So you can see you actually have time. You don't have to quickly put the ink down and then immediately heat emboss. You have some wiggle room time, which I like. But I wanted to show with this particular Stampin' Ink, I'm going to use 3 to 4 different ink colors. This will be very hard to do with embossing powder. So that's why I love finding this ink is so, not only can you do a lot of stuff with it, but which we'll go over in the video as well, but you can also heat emboss it. So there's the ink. I just sprinkled on some clear embossing powder, and now I'm going to go ahead and heat set it. I grabbed that paper out of the garbage, by the way, to use as a funnel. Sprinkled on some clear embossing powder from Wow. I love it so much I have the big ginormous jar, and I'll go ahead and heat emboss it. Why is my face on the screen, and why do I have these weird things on my face? The left side is makeup, the right side is it blended. I found this beautiful makeup line. So inexpensive. Foundations are 14 bucks. And I can do my whole face out of this one palette here. And it's custom colors matched to my skin. I was hesitant. I have a lot of fine lines, wrinkles, dark circles. I thought I would try it out. It's got a refund policy, 30 days. I just knew I was going to return it, but I didn't. I absolutely fell in love with it, and I wanted to share this makeup with you. It's one palette, clean beauty. It's custom matched to my face. I can do the same for you, and I just want to let you guys know about it. So there's a link in the video description below. Click on it. I want to talk to you about it. We can text back and forth. We can do whatever you want, but I just want to make sure that you know about this, because if you're like me, you just want to feel good about yourself. And this is something that actually made me feel good, and it looks good on my face, and it's inexpensive by God. So click the link below to find out more. All right, so now that I've gone ahead and heat embossed that, all that color is trapped underneath. So I can go and add more ink on top of it. So all that ink that I'm putting down, the brown and the green, the 2 shades of green, it's trapped underneath the embossing powder, so it's not going to change that. So I went ahead and blended in a sky, and then I can even flip on some water. These inks are also water reactive, so I can get some really cool water droplets from this as well. And I just think it's pretty, and if you try to do that with embossing powders or whatever, good luck to you. All the power to you. It's not going to be easy. So I left this alone. This is going to be a blank card. I can write something on the inside and be done with it, or I can add a sentiment later. Now, I like black. I like black images a lot, especially black heat embossed images. Now, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can use a embossing ink pad, which I'm going to do here in the first card, and some black embossing powder. The only black embossing powder I have is actually a sparkle embossing powder, because I don't use black embossing powder often, so I don't even have a plain one. So I'm going to have to show you this with a sparkle embossing powder, so keep that in mind. So I inked that stamp up with some embossing ink from Wow. Sprinkled on some of that black sparkle embossing powder, again using the trash as my funnel, and then I can go ahead and heat set that. And any kind of black embossing powder I used, even Wow, it gets everywhere. I don't know why, there's just something about it, but I'm always having to dust it off and remove it. It's gorgeous, I love it, I'm not knocking it, but there's such an easier way to do it without having multiple embossing powders. This is the ink pad, the black ink pad rather, that I use exclusively. I love it. It's VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It's a pigment ink. It's great black ink. It's crisp. I just love it. And instead of, getting an embossing pad out, inking it up, and using black embossing powder and all that stuff, this is my embossing ink because it stays wet longer. So I inked it up with the black ink. I am sprinkling on that clear embossing powder, and then I'm heat setting it. And that's it. And I love this result. So anytime I want a black embossed image without glitter and all that stuff in it, this is the step I use. It eliminates extra steps. You got your black ink pad, which you probably already have. Get yourself some clear embossing powder because it works for multiple uses, just like that very first card with all the different color ink pads, and then I heat set it with the clear. You know, I would have had to go and use 3, 4, 5 different embossing powders to get that look. Here I didn't have to do that. And then you're left with, you know, this great embossing powder. So I'm telling you, black ink pad and clear embossing powder for me is the way to go. A black pen, man, let me tell you something. I know you got a black pen. Just look around, you'll find a black pen. You can clean up any sentiments that maybe you missed a spot, and you can also create some easy borders around your card panel with a black pen. Do whatever, doodle, the sky's the limit. But I use a black pen a lot when I, you know, maybe smudged or messed up on a sentiment or whatever, and I do a lot of this outlining as well. So then you can take your focal point image or whatever, and you can create your card. So just think of all the fun designs and borders you can do with a black pen. This, again, I get asked about this a lot. This is my favorite glue. It's the Barely Art glue. I'll link it in the description for you. It's the only glue. I mean, I've had this glue forever. And then you just glue down your whatever it is you want to do. Stamp in that center spot, blank space, add a butterfly like I did here. I love this butterfly. A magic mug. That's where the butterfly came from, the magic mug. I get asked about this a lot of time. I now have mugs, plural. One mug contains all of my pre-stamped, cut, colored, whatever images. Like you see here, sometimes I just have the iPad or Netflix going and I just do a bunch of stamping. And this other mug, this is my original magic mug, has all of my sentiments and my word dies. And a lot of times I make my cards or do my backgrounds, and then I use strictly what's in these mugs to finish out the cards. It takes the guessing work out of it. You are able to do quickly because you're using what you've already made. I love my magic mugs. And almost in every video, I tell you the images came from my magic mugs. That's what my magic mug is. Now, a white pen. I love this white Posca pen. It's like a little paint pen, but it's just white. There's something about black and white, just those two colors together. I just love it. This is an image that I had already created. It was filed away. It was just a background I colored with some metallic watercolors. And then I'm just going to go ahead and outline the inside of the image to create a little shadow with my white pen. Pair it with a sentiment or something, again, came out of my magic mug, die cut, whatever. I just basically look in the mug and say, I've got to find something that works with this. And that's how I create that. Also use your white pen to maybe if you got a little smudge like I just did there, you can use your white pen on that. But anyway, just creating that little shadow with that white pen. I mean, it kind of looks silly now, but once I put the die cut on that is white, it's going to make all sense and it just kind of pulls everything together. A lot of times when I do sentiments, I always do white cardstock because I can always color my white cardstock with ink or something, like with my ink pad or do a little ink blending or whatever. So I'm able to do that. But you see how everything flows together now that I've got the sentiments on there that have that white. A white pen. Do not underestimate the power of the white pen. All right, here's where the trash comes into play. Get some paper out of the trash. I mean, you can use regular paper and tear it. This is trash. It's an instruction manual of some kind. Don't need it apparently, so it's in the trash. Pulled it out and just did a rip. There is no rhyme or reason to this. I'm going to create mountains. All right, I'm using an ink pad and a blending tool, and I'm just going to go in and do some blending. So I've got my paper. The rip is coming in from the top. I'm going in very heavy-handed right here. And at the time when I was doing this, I thought I was just going to do this one little like hilltop, if you will, and that's it. So I lift it, and I'm like, that's really pretty. What else can I do with it? So this was kind of an afterthought, and I have to tell you, hello, love it. I am not adding any more ink to that blending brush. I am taking whatever's left on that brush, and I'm adding it there. Look at that. It creates a shadow. Then I'm going to do it one more time. So I'm cleaning off my brush and creating this cool look all at the same time, right? It's the little things that I impress myself with, I swear. So look at this. I just stamped a sentiment on that. And it's just like I got this mountain. I mean, how pretty is that? Now, going in with like the torn paper, you can also use masking tape. This is just very thin painter's tape I found on Amazon. I'm just, no rhyme, it's not evenly spaced or nothing. I'm just slapping down 4 little skinny strips there, going in with the same color ink, going in with the same blending brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and blend this whole entire background right here. I'm not worried that some parts are heavier than others. That doesn't matter to me because this ink is water reactive. I'm not adding a lot of water, so I don't need to use watercolor cardstock. More on that in a second. This is just regular white cardstock. I flicked on some water. I let it dry. Then I peeled off the tape. And look at this little cool like background. The water splotches are everything. I just love it. And then I just took the sentiment and this image out of my magic mug and boom, bada bang. Watercolored cardstock, when do you use it? Now you saw on this last card I just did, I flicked on some water and that was just regular watercolor cardstock. That's because I was flicking on a very, very little bit. Here I'm going in with a lot of watercolor. This is actual watercolor. The cardstock to the left is watercolored cardstock and the cardstock to the right, the bright white, is regular cardstock. Now I'm going in, that's a very saturated brush there that's got a lot of water and a lot of paint on it. So they go down fine. As you can see, they're both very similar. But when you go to do some blending, so I just basically picked up some water on my brush and I'm blending it out. You can see that paper to the right, it's not moving very much. You can actually see every single stroke that I put down. Watercolor cardstock is made to work with water, obviously, and you're able to blend it and you get just a beautiful result. So if you know you're going in with a lot of water, you need watercolor cardstock. For water flicking and just adding those little splicks of water, you can probably get away with regular cardstock. If you know you're going in with a lot of water, then you need you need watercolor cardstock. I hope that makes sense. So water flicking, regular cardstock, anything more than that, watercolor cardstock. I hope that makes sense. So did you have a favorite? Did you know all these things? Were there any things that maybe you didn't know? I do want to know. That was a tongueful. Did you know? All right, so thanks for joining me for the video this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you want to see from me in future videos, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to click that link below to check out that makeup.